we have a great opportunity in this district. If you look across this district, obviously we're getting a new district, and all 8 counties have a unique ingredient in this district. You look down at Horry and Georgetown. For the longest time, they played backup, a secondary role to Charleston. You come over to Florence and Marion, where I'm not ashamed to admit we haven't had much representation in this area. You go over to Darlington, Dillon, Marlboro, Chesterfield. They have good representation as well, but they have a population center that at the other end of their district that they have to cater to. We have an opportunity in this district. If we can unite, come together, and recognize we have a common good, a common goal. And then I think that will lead us to growing jobs by improving our infrastructure. We just have to keep our eye on the ball and focus on what's important.
Mr. Wallace, tell me how you reconcile necessary government regulations and getting government out of the way of business so that jobs can be created. The government's interference in our daily lives is at an all-time high. Tell us how much water we can use to flush a toilet, how many shower heads we can use, what type of light bulbs we can use. What do you see as the federal government's role in our society?
The federal government needs to get out of the way and let free enterprise and private industry thrive. And it's ridiculous what we've allowed government to start doing. I use this example all the time. In Myrtle Beach, on an indoor swimming pool, they demand that you put a sprinkler system over an indoor pool. But I don't know about you, but if you can catch a swimming pool on fire, I'm not swimming in it. We've allowed the president to make decisions that when he couldn't get his cap and trade thing passed, he told the EPA, you go in there and you crack down on these coal regulations. And we've got a power plant right as you come in at Lake Busby, as you come on 501, the Granger plant. They're going to end up having to close that plant down. And that's the plant that started this state back up when Hurricane Hugo came through, and we had the first black start in the history of South Carolina. I would say that anybody with any common sense, which would be everybody on this stage, knows stupidity when they hear it. And you've got 160,000 regulations. The federal government, when Rick Perry's campaign tried to find out, hey, tell us what all these regulations say, it is an impossible task. That's what they answered back to him. Well, that right there's a crime all in itself. We need to go in there and freeze regulations, go in and put a sunset on them, and let's go through them all and figure out what works, what doesn't work. What's causing more pain than it can justify, what's strangling our business community, and get rid of them. It's just stick to the things that we know are going to make our food supply safe and make the world work in a safe and responsible manner. And get away from trying to dictate a one-size-fits-all government. It's wrong, it's what's messing this country up, and it's the reason why we're now struggling like we're doing. We need to cut these jobs regulations, let the business community thrive, and put people back to work.
I think since we are in Florence tonight, I'd like to ask this next question about the PD versus the Grand Strand, and I'd like to do another one where everybody has a chance to answer 30 seconds, and we'll start down with Mr. Prosser. The question is, name one thing that you want to do, or one interest you want to take to Washington that is PD specific, in other words, one non-Horry Georgetown County issue that you want to champion in Washington.
Again, I think that job creation is critically important. And if you look at the greatest need in this district, it is need in Horry County, but it's a different need here in the PD. I grew up here in the PD. I saw the progression of the growth of this economy and the loss of so many manufacturing jobs. And I think when we look at the issues that account for that, we have great infrastructure in terms of interstates here in the PD. That's something that's lacking on the coast. That's not where it needs to be addressed. I think the issue is one of training and bringing folks into the workforce. That's something I learned at PRT in dealing with the rural areas.
In TV, we call that a hard rap.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot we were on 30 seconds.
All right.
Again, job creation is issue number one. The unemployment rate nationally is 8.2% or 8.6%. That's terrible. But it's a whole lot higher than that here in the PD. It's, I think, 10.2 in Horry County. It's probably close to 20 in Marion, and Dillon, and Marlboro. Job creation is issue number one. That's why when I am elected your congressman, I will put an experienced economic developer on my staff, and I will be the #1 salesman for this area.
Two things I'd like to see happen in the PD. First is I'd like to see more free trade zones. We have an individual in this district that has now got a natural gas car that will be ready by the end of the year. And this is exciting news. He's already sold 9,500 to Walmart, where they deliver groceries around the country. The car could be being put together in South Carolina instead of Iowa. I would say we ought to be doing all we can to encourage him to bring that business here. He's a South Carolina resident. He wants it here. We need free trade zones, and there should be an intermodal port somewhere near 95 in this congressional district where you actually bring high
Infrastructure is an area, it's something that affects both areas, but especially affects Horry County, and it affects us as well. If we're going to do what we talk about in growing jobs, the government doesn't grow jobs. Anyone that tells you that is flat out wrong. Politicians tell you that. The way you grow jobs is you set the table. We haven't done a good job. Our area has grown. Obviously, infrastructure has not kept up with it. If we're going to attract industry to our area, we need to do a better job of having the infrastructure necessary so they have the people, or they have the ability to get their people and their product in and out.
You know, my entire family is from Hartsville and Darlington County in South Carolina, so I've grown up. My grandparents' farms on the East Lydia Highway, and I tell you, times are tough today, but Marlboro and Chesterfield and Darlington County and parts of Florence have struggled as long as I can remember. And I tell people in Horry County, you don't know the poverty until you go to some of these counties, like I have with my grandfather Grant, when he was still living in East Lydia Highway, been to somebody's house, has no floor. That's still happening right here. We need somebody, if I go to Washington, I want to work to do something that eventually means we lift everybody up and do the best job we can to put people to work here.
Mr. Bauer, this is not a federal question, but since you maintained a position in state government, I think the people here would like to hear your views on this. Just recently, hundreds of candidates were removed from the primary ballot in South Carolina on the technicality, caused, in my opinion, by the legislature not being careful when writing a new law in regards to filing a statement of economic interest. What do you think this says about our institutions of government, that the governor, the legislature, and the judicial system seem to be powerless to fix the problem?
Well, I think the toothpaste is already out of the tube now. It becomes very difficult to fix because at some point in time you create more winners and more losers. But most of all, it needs to be as easy as possible for anyone who wants to serve in public office to offer themselves to people. It shouldn't be as difficult as it is. Some people, you should not have to do it by a computer system. If you want to use the mail system, you ought to be able to, but to limit someone to say you can only do it by a computer system, when there are folks that, quite frankly, I don't pull my mom out of the crowd, but she's not the most computer savvy person, and she might not want to do it the way that the new people would do it. She may want to do it the way she had done it in the past, and so it's a fiasco what we have. There's been no real leadership on it, and I regret it for the people that could have done an outstanding job in some of these positions.
Would you agree that when they mandate from the Ethics Commission that we file electronically and that absolutely refuse to take a paper ballot, then that seems to me that is a new hurdle to be elected to public office, and I thought the Constitution was what set the qualifications for office.
Again, I think my answer kind of answered that. I think it's wrong. I think they should be, there need to be more checks and balances, and this demonstrates where the real problem is. Again, some government bureaucrats making it more difficult instead of saying, we welcome all. Any way you get it to us, I don't care if you send a carrier pigeon, if it gets there with the right information, they'll all be able to be submitted.
This question was submitted for Mr. Rice. Most of you on the panel today have said that you've been against federal regulations. The United States is home to about 104 nuclear power plants. One of those is just north of Hartsville, and it is also one of the oldest in the nation. Recently, we've had some issues concerning that power plant that some say is for